Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Launch Network. This is Carmine Danisco, your co-host for today's show. That is today, final episode of the 10-week workshop. We've had some super cool guests, some awesome shows. I mean, we've got some covered. I mean, I'm going to bring Warren on. We've covered so many different topics. It's been insane out here, and we got a lot of good questions, a lot of cool stuff happening. And, we're going to do over this last show. It's going to be probably one of the best shows because it is so needed, and I get so many questions about it. Let me bring on my co-host, Mr. Warren Tuttle. Warren, what's going on, my friend?
Hi, Carmine. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
This is great. I can't believe it's already end of June, and it's been this whole 10-week course has been really well received. So thanks for helping me put it on, and we've covered, like you said, we covered a lot of ground and gotten a lot of feedback. We've shook up a few people. We've also educated a few people, and it's been a lot of fun, and we'll certainly continue this program in the fall, and we'll be looking through everything we did and probably expanding on a few of the things that we've talked about. But it's been great so far.
Yeah, we've had obviously 10 shows, but some of them really stuck out, and we got a lot of questions about some. All of them were good. I don't mean it in a bad way, but some obviously hit home. A lot of people are needed at services in the industry. So yeah, we'll be able to look back at a lot of those and cover really what people are more interested in going through. I mean, did you get the same idea of that?
Absolutely. And remember, everybody, we're a nonprofit. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, United Inventors Association. So, we take, we're neutral in terms of, we don't profit from the show, but what we do try to do is introduce our board. All of them have their own businesses and do some pretty cool things, and they all give their time to help others. So that's what this is all about. And anything we pursue, it's about helping inventors, Carmen. It's all about the inventor. Every time you ever get to a fork in the road, just ask yourself, what's right for inventors? And that answer will give you, your direction of where you go to help people.
Yeah, I agree. Very cool. Well, I know we got, obviously we always run out of time, but we have a great guest for today. We'll be kind of waiting for this last session, right?
Well, like you said, we saved the best for last. So it's really my pleasure to introduce to everybody who doesn't know him already, and many people do, Roy Morejon. Roy is on our United Inventors Association Board of Directors. And I won't speak for him, I'll let him speak for himself, but suffice it to say he has a particular expertise in crowdfunding. So that's today's topic. So, hey, Roy, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with you both. Thank you so much for saving today for me. I appreciate the best for last comment, but we've had some amazing other team members and board members on here as well. So excited to follow up and provide some insight into what we do on the crowdfunding side.
Well, for sure. And now, is that a green screen behind you, or is that your actual office?
It's a real screen. It's real life behind me. Yeah, some of the products that we've funded, brought to life, some books that I've been mentioned in, and then just a bunch of other toys and junk like that.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, listen, we've covered a lot of cool subjects, but I think one of the coolest of all is crowdfunding. It's something that has come on the scene, relatively lately. You're immersed in it, how exciting to be in on the whole thing from the ground floor. Like I remember my older brother was a foreign exchange trader. He literally started the day the U.S. went off the gold standard in 1972. So he got involved in an industry that really grew tremendously. And if you could just spend a few minutes, Roy, telling people a little bit about your background, how you got here and your expertise, and then we can have some fun asking you questions.
Yeah, certainly. So I started this agency back in 2010 as a digital marketing agency. It was Command Partners back then. And basically we were a full service digital marketing agency. And I'm pretty good at SEO. So I got us ranked on the first page of Google for the phrase startup marketing. And basically that's when the first Kickstarter campaign reached out to us and said, hey, you guys do startup marketing. We're a startup. We're trying to raise money on Kickstarter. And I was like, what's Kickstarter? So did some research, saw that it was a platform where you could launch brand new innovative ideas and people would pay you money and go along for the journey, and see all of the trials and tribulations of the inventor bringing this product to market, typically for the first time. So we were able to, and we ended up, working with that customer and doubled their funding with just 2 weeks of marketing work. And, after that, we were like, wow, this is a really interesting category because we get to continue to work with the client after we understand who their customer is, how to target them, how to speak to them, and really continue driving sales for them long after the Kickstarter campaign was over. So now fast forward, almost 10 years now, we've been running marketing for Kickstarter campaigns. We've successfully funded over 2,000 different products now. We recently just finished our $70th million campaign on the platform. Last week, we just finished funding the most funded fitness product ever, raising $4.4 million for Oyo Fitness. So it's been an incredible journey. I'm very fortunate to work with a diverse amount of inventors from around the world that all have, interesting innovations that they want to bring to market using crowdfunding as a means of product validation.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I was doing the write-up the other day for social media, and I was trying to figure out how to do $70 million campaigns. So I realized I had to hyphenate it because actually your 2,000 campaigns and 70 campaigns have raised a lot more than $70 million, right? How many dollars are you talking about here at this point, would you say?
Yeah, so we're well over 300 million in capital raised now through Kickstarter for our clients.
That is awesome. And there's just so many questions that are bubbling up, Carmine, for me that and someone that started in their own business, I had my own snow plowing business and newspaper business, and I was always, I started a collection of stores when I was young. I was always low on capital, I had family, they never seemed to want to kick in, I go to the bank, I didn't own anything at the time, so they wouldn't lend to me. I mean, it was such a source of frustration going through not having the capital to do what you could do better. When I finally cobbled together money, I ended up being successful, but that's the barrier, in this country, the barrier to raising capital. I mean, it is such a great idea. And do you see it that way too? Just a whole new revenue stream for starting businesses, right?
Yeah, I mean, right. So, crowdfunding really levels the playing field for the inventor community, right? I mean, many inventors don't have access to capital in general. They don't have angels, they don't have rich uncles, they don't have, VCs that are willing to invest in their idea. And crowdfunding truly is the purest form that I've been able to work in terms of market validation for an idea. You're putting your idea out there. You're telling the crowd, hey, this is the prototype. This is kind of how it works. And this is hopefully how it works when we're done, should we raise enough money. With your small pledge or, the product itself, you get to go along for the journey and be the first one to ever get this product, before it hits the shelves of Amazon or Best Buy or Target or wherever it may end up.
Well, I have, ordered so many things on both Kickstarter and IndieGoGo. I am a junkie for it. And, if I see anything I like or a product I want, I order it. But I don't know if this question is really coming in cadence at the right time, but I was having dinner last night. My oldest daughter's home. She lives in Utah, managed to get home right before the ban. And I was saying that we're going to do this show today on crowdfunding and the first thing she said, oh yeah, Dad, all those things on crowdfunding, they never make them. They just take the money and they never do anything with it. And I was saying, well, I think that's a little anecdotal. I said, and so I said, I'm going to ask Roy that very question. So I know we're going to get into other things, but I mean, obviously there's a few things that don't get made and don't succeed for one reason or another, but what's the general rule? I mean, most of these things go forward, don't they?
They do. I mean, every startup's in a different place, right? In terms of when they come to us with a prototype or with a finished product and they just need the final capital for production, manufacturing, shipping, labeling, whatever it may be. So, we're seeing companies much more advanced in terms of where their product is at and being able to ship it much faster than they used to be able to do. We've run campaigns, 8 years ago that still haven't shipped a product yet, right? That's the nature of it. It happens very early on, but now we're seeing products being fulfilled very fast, within 90 days, many cases, because people really do have that sense of urgency of wanting that problem solved with the solution that they backed on Kickstarter. But yeah, it still does happen. Companies go through a lot of different iterations and things happen, life happens. Right now we're dealing with a global pandemic and people aren't able to get prototypes made or products shipped, or they can't even leave their state. I'm in North Carolina right now, and I don't think I'm allowed to go see you in Connecticut without a 2-week quarantine. So, I mean, there's so many different things that happen in life with inventors or with the community or with the product itself, where that's what project updates are for, where once you back it, you get to follow along the process and see what those problems are. And usually the companies are very transparent about, hey, listen, we spent through the cash. Our prototyping took too long. Our factory did this, or something happened here where we don't have enough money yet, and maybe we have to go do an angel round or a VC round, showing the funds that we did raise on Kickstarter that there is a community for it, there is a need for this product, and trying to bring that company forward. So I don't have a hard stat for you, but I mean, companies are doing a much better job. Startups, inventors, entrepreneurs are doing a better job delivering products faster because they're doing more work before they launch.
For sure. And it seems like the whole industry has come such a long way. And then I'm sure where you must be experiencing that people are doing their second, third, and fourth campaigns, right? I mean, people are getting pretty knowledgeable, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we have a client that's done, I think, 15 campaigns now. And he keeps going back to his crowd and asking, hey, what do you want now? What do you want now? What do you want now? And I think that's the best form of, actually building a company with multiple SKUs in it is build the first one, deliver it, make them happy, and then keep them engaged, constantly communicating with that crowd that you built and asking them, hey, you liked this one, what about these 4 ideas? And it really gets the crowd involved in the process to feel like they had a say in it.
So now I'll ask the real $1 million question, which I'm sure there's both sides of the issue, but do you feel with all your experience that it really is an indicator of how well it does on one of these sites, how much money is raised, to how it's actually going to sell, when the product eventually gets to consumer market? Is there a strong connection, or sometimes yes, sometimes no? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's very aligned with what you raise on Kickstarter could be your monthly sales numbers on Amazon within 6 months.
Wow.
You take my favorite buddy Josh, with a bunch of balloons, right? You take this product, we raised nearly $1 million for him on Kickstarter in 30 days, and then now I think he's shipped a couple billion units, where it's just incredible. But I mean, we really see it work that way in terms of, sales velocity post crowdfunding once you've delivered on Amazon. And then when you look at actual company valuations, we've had a couple dozen clients now on Shark Tank. And typically the valuation is 10x what they raised on Kickstarter.
Wow.
So if you get $1 million Kickstarter campaign, typically their valuation on Shark Tank is $10 million. And many of these clients are getting deals with the sharks because they've proven that there is a market for the idea that they have.
Now that's cool. And something that I've noticed, because obviously I spend a lot of time on the sites. I'm always looking, and it's a great way to just get a feel for what's out there. But I don't know if it's me or if it's anecdotal or something, but I feel like there's more products doing really well today that are like million or multi-million-dollar raises that are things that aren't all that disruptive, like a silicone sheet pan, that goes in your cookie sheet pan that helps you, cook things in the oven. I mean, that's something I've been doing for years at home. They raised a couple $1 million. I mean, there's other ones too. Is that just me and anecdotal, or people using this platform more to launch basic products?
Well, so we helped with that prepped campaign for the sheet cookingware, and it's a very timely product. I mean, you look at, the trends of COVID, and bread making is like one of the skyrocketing, exploding trends of making bread at home to kill hours. And what better tool than, modular cooking pan to be able to cook unique things together and be able to do that. So the timeliness of these products right now, I mean, we just did a headband called Mendy, which is for like helping you with your meditation practice. Again, very timely, over $1 million.
Wow.
We just finished Oyo Fitness, at home fitness gym, basically, that folds up that you can travel with. Not that anybody's traveling today, but again, 4.4 million for that. So the timeliness of many of these products has been strategically aligned with the way the world is. But you are absolutely correct that these projects are raising more capital now than typically we probably would have seen in the past, because I think there's a lot more people online, and there's a lot more people online shopping now that probably never had before. Not necessarily on Kickstarter in terms of the demographics that we see, but just there's more people online buying things, and they're getting more accustomed to it and appreciating the value of getting something shipped to their house.
Sure. Well, I'm old school, and obviously for a living I look for products and I represent companies, but I never ever steal anything. I always need to, if I see something I like, I'm always tracking down the inventors. It's not always easy, but they usually put some sort of reference And then of course you have to do your work on Facebook or LinkedIn, and then send notes and hope that you hear back. And I had an interesting story recently where a person had a highly successful product, and I reached out to him, on Facebook Messenger, all these things. Right? Never heard anything back, which is, somewhat typical. They didn't have time for me. And then I saw we had a mutual friend that lived in the same state. So I called the guy and I helped him with a few projects. And he says, "Oh, I know that dude. He lives across the street from me. He's my neighbor." So he went over and talked to him and hadn't called me back. Anyway, the bigger point I'm trying to make, not that I will track you down if it's, but the bigger point is that, you try to, if you're trying to do things the right way, which I do, and the companies I work with do, it's an interesting dilemma. But then I find, there are other companies that I hear about products that they just go to TV with them or whatever, in the case of Josh, that don't stop and bother to ask the inventor. And what's been your experience there, Roy, and what advice can you offer up to people who are going public for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, definitely do your research now. I mean, when we started a decade ago, there really was no template out there of how to run these campaigns, how to set them up, what information customers really wanted to see, and how they built trust immediately with a single page on Kickstarter and convert them into a, part of their community. So start with your research. Now that there's been over 180,000 successful Kickstarter campaigns now, likely there's something in your category or a mix of your idea and innovation out there that's been done before. So look to that. And also the Kickstarter community really is a true community. Typically, they have a messaging system on their platform, but maybe you need to change your profile picture, Warren, to be more welcoming for a message. I don't know what it looks like, but no, I mean, use the platform basically to reach out and just, be very open with people, because there are some great Reddit threads as well that you can jump into, and a lot of the creators are in there as well. But yeah, I mean, there is a downside, like Josh had to go through, in terms of, people taking your innovation and, running with it. So definitely get as much done as possible, patent protection, trademarks, what have you, before you launch the project, to, show that it is your innovation, it's about to launch, and, hopefully you are the first one to bring that product to market. I mean, you look at like Fidget Cube, right? That ran a campaign, raised $6.5 million, and somebody was able to duplicate that product and ship it before the campaign ever ended. So, products like that's tough, because you are putting your entire blueprint out there. But if you do have the protection, hopefully that does prevent you from, future folks taking that innovation and running with it on their own and claiming it their own.
No, that's great. That's great advice. Again, your expertise is really welcome here. So tell us a little bit, Roy, about how you actually help people, because, people can't just, show up, shoot a video on their camera, and be ready to rock. There's a lot more to it. And of course, today, it's getting much more professional, and presentations are awesome today. What are a few of the things that people need to do, or if they're working with someone like you, what do you advise or suggest how they get started?
Yeah, I mean, the research component, still weighs in on every single thing that you want to do with your idea. And if this is going to be something, just a side project, or, an actual business that you want to build out with multiple SKUs, start planning out what it may look like, should it be successful or not. And capital is always, going to be an issue or a question mark, in terms of, do you have enough? Do you have to raise some before you bring this idea to market? And the platforms now are very specific in terms of having a fully functioning, working prototype, especially for a physical product, that can be showcased to the community to show that you are very far along, or at least far enough along that the product makes sense and people are going to buy it, and hopefully you ship it and deliver it on time. So, the research component is certainly one of them, and getting your story down, writing all of these things out in terms of, who's this product for? Who are you making it for? What might the price points be? Where are your customers now? Where can you engage them beforehand and get as much advice from them as possible, in terms of, hey, here's my idea, this is what I'm thinking about, thoughts. And really just gather as much feedback as possible, as well as giving. You've really got to dive into these communities that are out there, and, especially if they're in alignment with what your product is, and just give as much value as possible before you ask for their advice, or ask for feedback, or ask for money to buy that product. So do those foundationary things that you truly need to do for any business, in terms of making sure that there's a market fit for it before you throw it out on Kickstarter and nobody shows up. It is not a if you build it, they will come. Those days are long gone now. You need a strategic marketing launch, in terms of looking at a holistic omni-channel approach to all of the different channels that you need to push and promote this product to get the attention of someone first and then convert them on the page as well.
Right. So you look, I'm sure there's a whole industry that's built up. You're at the cutting edge and the beginning of it of helping and assisting folks, but needless to say, you're the top dog. I get that. But how do you when people look you up and tell us how they can get in touch with you, your email or where to look. And then what do you do with, I mean, you're obviously evaluating leads that come in, deciding whether they're worthwhile or not. And then obviously once you make a decision, there's a lot of stuff that you bring to the table, you bring to bear to help their campaign. So how does that process of them reaching out to you specifically work?
Yeah, certainly, Warren. Yeah, so I mean, you can Google me, just Google my name and you'll see some of the stuff that's out there on me. My personal email address is just roy@roymorejon.com, Morejon. So you can send me anything that you got and I'll review it and look at it. I mean, we field hundreds of new ideas every week. So we're looking through them and sorting them and seeing if there truly is a good fit for crowdfunding, for marketing, for e-commerce, Amazon, whatever it may be. We kind of take you through a vetting process to make sure that it's a good fit for crowdfunding, it's a good fit for our agency, because we typically play in just a few different categories into, consumer packaged goods, fashion, technology, fitness, any of those products with price points between, $20 to $200 is usually kind of the sweet spot for us that we look at. And, is it a good fit for the overall Kickstarter community that's out there? There have been many different products that go live and just the crowd doesn't convert because it's not a good fit for them, not a good match.
So would you say, not to interrupt, but would you say there are other agencies that maybe specialize in other categories type of thing? Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for film, if you're doing something in that, there's a specific agency for that. If it's arts and crafts or music related, there are definitely other agencies for that. But for us on the inventor side, it's specifically for physical goods. It's got to be a movable, tangible thing that people can touch and, kind of have an experience with.
Right. It's probably a good idea. I mean, this is rather basic, but for people just to go spend a couple hours on these sites, right? And go through and just get a feel for the types of things that are out there and maybe build their confidence a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, there's just a ton of information now, like 180,000 successful Kickstarter campaigns now. Like there's definitely some info out there. You can kind of backtrack on what they've done, where they got journalist coverage from, where it was shared on social media. I mean, all of that data now lives publicly on Kickstarter.com. I mean, it's there. You can see what countries converted most, what pledge level they backed the most, where they came from, what journalists wrote about it. All of this data now lives publicly on every single campaign page. And it's very easy now to start doing some preliminary research on who your customer is, where they hang out, what they like to buy, and start doing that research, in terms of, again, focusing in on that single consumer of who they are, what they look like, and where they hang out.
And they also need to do a lot of research on, like you said, getting ahead of it, sort of the production, the product, the cost and so forth. I remember years ago, the classic, was the coolest cooler, who the inventor was a friend of ours and spoke many times to the UIA and all, and did a great job marketing it. But unfortunately, underpriced the product. And so obviously there's a certain engineering element to all this. Is this something you get involved with, helping people too? Or what are your words of wisdom to people to make sure they price it? Obviously they want to raise a lot of money, but they got to price it right or the whole thing's going to be a disaster, right?
Yeah. And we're doing that a lot more now with kind of a market validation campaign, right? Where we'll, again, with our engineering staff and product development team downstairs, they're able to look at a problem, look at a solution, and figure out, again, what the manufactured cost is exactly going to be, basically within a certain, dollar amount. But that gives us some insight in terms of when we run these market validation tests of testing separate price points for the traffic that we're sending them to. So let's say the COGS on an item is $20. So we're going to test, maybe $60 price point, $80, $100, maybe $120, see what our conversion rates are across the board. And if we feel that there's some wiggle room there to be like, hey, we can probably, sell this at $80 and make more profit, for it, and the customer is still going to be happy, and they're converting at that rate. So there's a lot of stuff that we can do pre-campaign to really hone in on what the true conversion rate would be on the dollar value or the margin that we need to hit, before it ever gets into the retail stores and things change there. But also, hey, if we actually have 1,000 orders or 10,000 orders, then how does that change, in terms of our cost of goods? Is that significant enough where we can break even on our first 1,000 orders, and then the other 9,000 are all profit at the rate that we need it to be?
No, that's awesome, and how far you've come is just fantastic. And so this is one of my favorite questions, only because I thought of it. I've been obsessed with it because I'm the typical guy that goes to a baseball game, when we can, and I look around, how many people are there, how many people are buying hot dogs, how much are they making, I always ask myself the question, so what's to stop sort of an illegal enterprise from putting something up, doing a good job, showing it on Kickstarter, raising a lot of money, just taking the money and hitting the road? I mean, are there laws that protect? I mean, I know there could be class action suits and so forth, but is this been open or fertile ground for that type of thing? Because I don't know. I always think about that.
The trust and safety teams at both, and again, I'm not an attorney, but the trust and safety teams at both Kickstarter and IndieGoGo are doing a much better job than they used to in the past of evaluating products and innovations and making sure that they are what they are, the inventor is who they say they are, and that this innovation does not live somewhere else on Alibaba or somewhere else, that this is truly a brand new innovation, and this is the first time it'll ever be seen in public on their site. Not to say that it still can happen. There are projects that launch and then a week or so into it, get shut down because someone did more research, whether it be from the crowd or from the platform, that the product gets shut down and either has to move platforms because of whatever reasons, or they just launch on their own, .com and try and drive awareness to it there. But again, they are doing a better job of policing innovations.
Well, I may have to write a book about that. You know how they write these books about these terrorist actions or something, and they're made up, and it's probably the terrorists read them and say, "Hey, we should do that." Anyway, I'm going to write a book. You just brought up something that tickled a thought. So you'd see so many things that are successful, $1 million raises like you've had, and then it says, raised $1.2 million on another platform. Is that commonplace today for people to use both Kickstarter and IndieGoGo? Is that part of your strategy?
It is, yeah. So the majority of the clients we work with launch their initial campaign on Kickstarter, run it there, and then migrate their successful campaign then over to IndieGoGo In Demand, where they can continue to raise capital on their platform from that crowd, which is a little bit different than the Kickstarter community. And then once their product's ready to ship, usually that's when they'll set up their Amazon and their .com and try and drive all the awareness back to their website. So there are still projects that are in demand, and they've been there for years. They did, a shift, I think, on some of the older products and turned them off now. But a lot of the new products still live there, where they're able to continue to raise capital. And I know there's always been like payment processor issues with that, but IndieGoGo has, alleviated those pain points for startups to be able to still pre-sell a product that doesn't exist yet, and hopefully ship it within that calendar year.
So what are the other platforms? Obviously, those are the big two, and then you mentioned three. Are there a couple more that people should be aware of? Platforms besides those, or are those the primary?
Those are the primary ones for reward-based crowdfunding. As you dive into the overall breadth of crowdfunding, you have real estate donation, and then the other side is equity crowdfunding, right? Now with the Jobs Act being passed, it allows companies to raise up to, $1,070,000 on the Reg C side, or on the Reg A side, they can raise up to $50 million for their company. So we do see a lot of companies now, and, equity crowdfunding is actually performing extremely well this year. WeFunder just released their public stats of, they're doubling growth basically this year, with a diverse group of people coming in and looking to truly diversify their portfolios with small investments into startups. So we're seeing a lot of growth there, and a lot of activity coming in from campaigns that finished and shipped and need to raise more money. Instead of making a new product, using equity crowdfunding for their crowd to say, hey, you bought this product, you love it, become one of our biggest brand evangelists for us and own a piece of the company now. So we're seeing a lot of, that path from Kickstarter to in demand to equity crowdfunding now, a lot more than we saw in the past.
Well, that's really exciting stuff. This is so wonderful to watch something grow organically and successfully, and it's always the best way. But you mentioned before very quickly Amazon. People eventually going to. I saw yesterday an announcement that Amazon said that they were going to go after counterfeits in a big way. I don't know if you saw that, but it was like official news that they are going to set up a certain either division or panel or something to really regulate that. I mean, what do you think? Welcome news? Is that too easy a question?
Yeah, I mean, we play with Amazon for a lot of our clients, not to the depth of some of these, just dedicated Amazon marketing companies or agencies, but I think the counterfeit products are on there. I mean, I think it was, I don't even know the stat, but it was like billions of dollars they've invested into it, and hundreds of millions of counterfeit products that they stop every year, as well as sellers that are continuing to try and put these products on there. So it's great to see their due diligence on this, because the biggest thing they need to avoid is annoying their current customer base by purchasing products that weren't vetted or aren't real on their platform, and customers don't come back and re-register to be a Prime member. So it's on them to make sure that they police it as well, just like Kickstarter and IndieGoGo and their trust and safety teams policing the innovations that are coming on there. Certainly they have a harder job than Amazon, I think, being able to review products one by one as they come in, but there's still a need for all of this, just given the way the world works these days.
Well, it's tough. I have one of the companies that I help on the open innovation front has a successful product. Every time we run more ads on Amazon, it drives sales to the knockoffs, and it's so hopefully these things will be figured out in time. It's always hard with the new technology figuring it out, right, in advance. Yeah. But we have we have a great crowd today. This is going really well, and a couple of questions have come in, and I'll start just in order. So if we can take those, Roy. This first is fairly easy. What items are now trending on Kickstarter? What's going on right now as we take a snapshot?
Yeah, the trending stuff. I mean, it's really interesting to see what is doing well. I mean, anything I think in health and wellness, people are truly finally making that a priority of their life. So it's great to see that more people are out there walking, fitness. I mean, e-bikes are going crazy. I think IndieGoGo just had their largest e-bike campaign with Flex e-bikes. We worked on that previous campaign, and $12 million in e-bike sales. So the fitness and health product category is certainly doing extremely well. Travel is doing poorly, right? Nobody's buying new suitcases, new luggage, new backpacks, those sorts of things.
That's interesting, because that's usually, suitcases are usually like a big winner, right?
Suitcases, backpacks, yeah. Usually they do extremely well, but right now we're definitely seeing a slowdown with those. Anything also that's, eco-conscious, if you will, in terms of reusable materials, recycled materials. People actually really do care about the earth and the planet and where it's going. So if there's some sort of blend in there with your product and innovation, certainly seek that out, because I think the value is there for a long-term customer base that you can build around, that stance in terms of bringing your product to market. The cookware, we mentioned that earlier. Those, anything that's in a kitchen, a gadget, those are doing extremely well in order to, whether it be bread making or, cake making, any of those gadgets and gizmos certainly can do extremely well right now. So, I would look to those, and you can also log into Kickstarter and see exactly what's trending. There's just like 2 or 3 clicks of a button, and Kickstarter shows you exactly what the trending products are based on a few different metrics that they have in their algorithm.
Isn't it great these days where you can walk outside and just the air just feels cleaner? You know what I mean? I don't know about you, but up here in Connecticut, it's just like so crystal clear and wonderful. Hopefully we can keep this environmental, trend going. But for some reason I doubt it, but we'll see. Here's a good question. What type of resources or how much money does people need to get started? I mean, I know that's a generic question, but what's the initial investment for people? What should they be thinking in terms of getting things going?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different phases of bringing your innovation to market, right? So first, you got to look at it in terms of the research side and your time. Next is putting this thing together, making it, the prototype. That's a capital intensive thing as well, depending on how many bells and whistles and connections or tech that you have in it, if you will. So once you kind of have that done, there's a few different phases then that follow on to that. One, it's the storytelling. What is the brand? What is the product story? And doing all that, again, time, money, where you can hire out for that. Then it's building out your assets, in terms of product photography, lifestyle shots of it, as well as a campaign video. These are necessary elements of any successful 6, 7, 8-figure campaign that you're going to run. You have to have these elements down. And then there's the, omni-channel approach of how do I market this thing and how do I find my community for this product? That all costs money. And again, ad costs are actually a little bit cheaper now with less advertisers on the platforms from Facebook and Google. So there is a good opportunity there to reduce your cost per acquisition based on your targeting preferences. But there's definitely a budget needed for all of your ads, as well as an agency to run your campaign. So it's really tough to say, but definitely it's in the tens of thousands to run a successful 6-figure project.
Right. So obviously you have to set your goals first, what you think is realistic, and then back it up. But it could be in the tens of thousands. So again, as we've been educating inventors here, there's a whole bunch of ways to spend your money, folks, and we've been over some of them over the last 10 weeks. So to me, Roy, again, it's to speak to someone like you who's an expert, and give them straight answers on stuff. I think at the end of the day is really the best advice, and why we're appreciative of you coming on the show. Another question was, what, and we talked about it a little bit, but what happens if the product is not delivered? I mean, is there a penalty? I mean, can this go on for forever? I mean, you've said before you have a few that still haven't shipped. Are they not allowed to run another campaign, with Kickstarter if they go through that? Do they get put on a hit list or something? What's the downside of not delivering?
Yeah, I mean, there have been some large campaigns, the $1 million raises typically, where there's class action lawsuits against the company itself, but it's very difficult to get that crowd back together in a cohesive group to all file such documents. But really, there isn't much of a penalty that Kickstarter will impose. I mean, honestly, the platform takes no stance on it whatsoever. They told you what the product was. They said how much it was going to be. They told you what the timeline to bring this thing together for. And as long as that company, that inventor, is updating the crowd of, here's the pain points, here's the issues I'm having, listen, I tried to spend this and this is what happened, and I can't raise any more money, I can't bring this thing to market. There are some really good ethical companies out there that say, listen, we spent all the money on the product, but we're willing to either give you some sort of refund or a credit for all the other products that we have, for instance. And I know that recently just happened with one of our companies that we ran a campaign for. They couldn't keep putting capital into the product and the innovation. There wasn't enough of a continued crowd for it as well. So basically at that point, they're like, hey, we're gonna have to shut it down in terms of the innovation team working on this product, but we have other products. Here's 200% of the money that you backed us with in credits on our website to buy something that hopefully does fit the needs or the problem that you had. So right now it is a tough pain point in terms of the investment that you make. There is a chance that the product won't get delivered.
Well, I'm sure you've had, look, you're the same sort of business I am. As you look at products and you make evaluations and whether you're going to move ahead with them to begin with. I'm sure you have some great stories, but tell us a story or two about something that you thought was going to be huge and didn't get off the ground, or maybe likewise something you thought, there's nothing to it and it just exploded. I mean, do you have stories like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a handful. I mean, we like to talk about the ones that actually become really successful. Those are fun, for like the Josh Malones and the Bunch of Balloons of the world. But there was actually a campaign recently that we ran, I think it was a couple years ago now, for a custom molded high heel shoe. And I know you're all saying, like, why would you run a Kickstarter campaign for a custom molded high heel shoe? Because usually the consumer, my assumption would be that they want to try on the shoe actually, and they want to feel it and walk around in it and make sure that it's a great fit, and then they leave the store happy with it. But so we had much lower expectations for it. Maybe it would be a 6-figure campaign. The campaign ended up raising over $1.8 million on Kickstarter, just really focusing in on very niche communities within the custom molded, or high heel community that lives out there in terms of the urban worker or what have you. It was just amazing to see where folks were coming in and why they were actually backing this project, because of the problems that they've had with their footwear in the past, and that it didn't fit a wide foot or a not wide foot, a long foot, a big foot, whatever it may be. Many different pain points, and this product solved all of those pain points well outside of what we thought the current customer looked like.
Wow.
So that was always exciting. And we actually have that case study published as one of our 3 case studies on Facebook right now in terms of the success stories that we've had in crowdfunding.
I don't know why I think of it, but you made me think of the old album, "The Low Spark of High Heeled Boys" by Traffic. But anyway, that might have been before your time. But that does bring up the point of, how you have to do a lot of research and to find those people that are specifically and pull them out. Because look, you could run a campaign. If nobody ever hears of it, you're not going to raise any money, right? I mean, that's a big part of what you do.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, it's not a field of dreams, right? If you build it, they will come. But again, targeting on these ad platforms is very specific, where you can target down into whether it be the zip code or the like profile, the lookalike audience profile of all of these different innovations. And sometimes you'll be very surprised in terms of what communities it truly triggers transactional value for.
Cool. So I know, I don't mean to put you on the spot with this question, but it's something that came up in my mind. I've done you're on the UIA, United Inventors Association board. We're a nonprofit. I'm on the National Pro Bono Patent Commission. We do a lot of things to help people. I spend a lot of time, I work with 4 or 5 inventors a week that don't have resources at all, just because I just took a call today from someone who has absolutely no money, doesn't even have an internet account, and yet you feel like they could have valuable ideas. Do you ever do something either on a pro bono or a nonprofit basis or something like that, where you see something, maybe people don't have the resources and you're able to work with them?
Absolutely, Warren. Yeah, I mean, it was a few years ago that we actually set up our own separate fund called Start 100 to actually fund startups that didn't have the capital to either prototype and build that product or have the funds necessary to market that product and innovation successfully. So we've actually put a few companies through that, successful Kickstarter raises. Now they've gone on to actually either be acquired or, have subsequent rounds of Series A or B. So it's really, we field every single innovation that comes in, and the ones that we are willing to place bets on, we make investments into. And then, like I said at the beginning of the show, everything begins with research. So as long as the inventor is willing to do the hard work and the research and, come with a plan without, not having any capital for them, the information is going to be their most valuable resource. So as long as they can do the research and put it in a position that's pitched properly to us to be like, yes, we're willing to put our own capital into that. They've got to show up that way. But yeah, it definitely happens. I know when Josh came to us, he didn't have a lot of capital either with a bunch of balloons, but we saw the innovation. We knew it was.
He does now. He does now.
Of course, but when he came to us, he didn't, and we had to make a bet. We're just like, hey, let's take this on because we think that there's a market for this. We think it's a great, aha, I wish I had made that innovation. So we're always evaluating every single opportunity that comes into us, and if we can't help them because it's a capital thing, we have a few avenues, but also we just have so many resources on our website, our blog, our resources, my podcast, it's all out there. So you just truly have to spend the time on it and be, as educated as you can to come to the table with a proper pitch to go for that ask in terms of, here's what I'm asking for. This is what I need.
That's great. And as you're talking, it makes me think, and we can talk about it offline someday, but if we can tie any of your people into the Pro Bono Patent Commission, program, we have pretty strict criteria for it around the country, but we now have all 50 states covered, and the program's working successfully now. And I'm a huge believer, Roy, especially as I get older, that if innovation is going to be important to America, then everybody has to have access to it one way or the other. It's like education. If you don't, it's not fair. And I know there's a lot of social issues going on today, but to me, that's inherent. It's just fair-minded. So appreciate what you do there.
Absolutely. No, I'm happy to help out any inventor. Like I said, you can shoot me an email, find me on social media. Really happy to help out and, continue to give and as much value as I can and show you what we can and cannot do. There are just some innovations that we just can't help out on, but, we're happy to guide you down to, trusted resources that we've been working with for over a decade now.
Cool. So this is usually, Carmine has left us. We apologize, folks. He had a very, very important call with a major sports franchise who will remain nameless, but I think it was the Orlando Magic. Anyway, no, I'm sorry. But so he's not here. So sometimes we take some more questions, which I don't have access to. But Roy, do you? I know you said you had some materials. If there's anything we missed that you want to share with people, that'd be a good time. So any last thoughts?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot, Warren. Honestly, this was really fun and exciting. I love the Spitfire. You know, it's a lot like my podcast on Art of the Kickstart. So that's a lot of fun. I mean, again, you know, you can find me online everywhere. You know, feel free to reach out to me on social. Our company, Enventys Partners, you can find there, as well as our blog and resource. We have a really cool newsletter that promotes products called ProductHype.co. So check that out and subscribe over there. And then listen to my weekly podcast, Art of the Kickstart, where I'm interviewing startups and founders and inventors just like you every single week and talking about the process of how they brought their innovation to market and what it took, and, you know, hopefully give you some insights there as well as you're doing your research.
Well, that's awesome, Roy. Well, listen, I'm a huge fan of yours. Really appreciate your sharing information. I think the platform is awesome. And obviously, the more knowledge people have, the better. So if all of this goes by the wayside, folks, we'll have this whole interview up on the UIA site, you know, in our library. But you can also always reach out to the UIA through Deb Hess, or you can reach me directly at www.tuttle@yahoo.com, and we'll forward you on to Roy. So, Roy, thanks so much for spending a little bit of time. I hope you have a happy 4th and summer, and appreciate everything. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Warren.
Well, somehow this is supposed to go off. Hold on.